Hey guys, and welcome to the Working Money channel. I've got XRP up here, guys, on the hourly, and over the last day or so, we haven't really seen that much movement for XRP. It had been that, last week, we did see a lot more action for the XRP cryptocurrency, and then that action just kind of tapered off in and around here, and we didn't really see too much in the way of new highs or new lows. This was exciting, though, last week when we were getting all that news. But you know what, guys? This is looking like it's going to move higher on that short-term time frame. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's harder to predict where, cryptocurrencies or even stocks for that matter are going to move on the short term. But we're not here for the short term. We're not day trading these cryptos. Overall, though, XRP still looking fairly robust. We compare that to Bitcoin, though. And let me just bring up the Bitcoin chart here. This is Bitcoin on the daily. And you can see over the last day, Bitcoin has seen a bit of movement upward. Throwing that on the 1 hourly, you can see that a little better here. Yesterday evening, we did see a bit of a push for Bitcoin. So, now we're seeing a Bitcoin price right up here at around 27,300. So Bitcoin forming what is looking like a bullish pennant pattern. Yes, a bullish pennant pattern. Hopefully we are going to see that move to the upside very, very shortly. When Bitcoin does move, it usually does take the rest of the crypto market with it. Zooming out here on Bitcoin, you can totally see it almost pinpointed to the day, the first day of 2023, right down in here. That was that first green candlestick there, and then the market just kind of took off. So the market has been very, very bullish in 2023. And this is why, guys, I decided to switch up my Patreon site. It is only $5 a month, and as you guys can see, I'm flashing on the screen different picks, different cryptocurrencies that I outline on my Patreon site. Some cryptos that I'm picking, me personally, for this next bull run. So essentially, that is what I'm doing. I'm going to be posting the trades on the days that they occur. So all the buys and all the sells. And if you guys were paying attention to the screen there, you guys can see there were some entries that you can get in on right now that are even better entries than when I got in. But, I'm not trying to pinpoint bottoms or pinpoint tops. This is really just about those longer term impulse moves. This is also for trading in a spec market. So, we talk about a lot of different coins for a lot of different reasons. If you guys are interested in that kind of thing, it is, again, only $5 a month, the Working Money channel Patreon, getting your money working for you. Now, a bit of an update with regards to the Ripple case. I know we're still waiting for that verdict. Jesse Hines here giving his insight, giving his input on what he thinks about the Ripple SEC case. As we get closer to the resolution of the Ripple case, I'm going to throw my original thoughts from years ago so people can tell me how unreasonably wrong I am when the case is decided. Let me know your thoughts here. So he goes on to say this, early day sales of XRP will be found to have violated securities laws. This will set a precedent that the SEC will use to go after many other companies. Essentially, if you sell something for fundraising, then you have created an investment contract. And I mean, that sounds fairly reasonable. I feel like, in a lot of ways, everybody would be perfectly unhappy with that decision, or perfectly happy, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Because an ICO is an ICO. I mean, if you are using it for fundraising, that does in fact go against securities laws. But there's that issue of the cryptocurrency in the ecosystem today. How do you get your project off the ground otherwise? He goes on to say, however, I do believe that the court will determine that Ripple is no longer violating securities laws in how they are currently doing sales. So, another very good point. With that said, the biggest question mark is whether the court decides to tackle the question of whether XRP itself is a security and how to deal with the early sales being securities. My fear is they won't actually decide this. However, the SEC has really been forcing the issue with their recent claims, so the court may feel compelled to make this decision. To be honest, if the court does make this decision, I am grateful that the SEC took this silly argument, because otherwise they wouldn't have. If the court does opine on the status of XRP going forward, which I am about 50-50 on, whether they decide it or whether they won't, the only logical conclusion is that XRP itself cannot be an investment contract. It just doesn't make sense. I think the fair notice defense will only come into play if there is some odd determination that XRP, the asset, is an investment contract. Then Ripple has a very valid defense that there was no fair notice to this, but this really only helps Ripple and not its users. But once again, I just can't see a court determining that XRP, the asset, is a security. The XRP community has, obviously chimed in here, like Duncan, if early sales are viewed as securities, why the settlement with FinCEN in 2015? And I've always wondered that, in terms of that FinCEN classification, why call XRP a virtual currency then? Wouldn't that indicate that FinCEN got it wrong? Any thoughts on that? Jesse Hines does respond here. Each agency can call something whatever they want, and a settlement with one means nothing to the other. And this is part of the problem, right? And I think this is where, U.S. government really does want to make sure that there is an organization that takes care of cryptocurrency specifically. Whether it is creating a new one or whether it's picking one. Mark Phillips here saying, Jesse, thanks for the insight. If Judge Torres determines early sales were investment contracts, but current sales are not, what she might use to define a security and non-security threshold. Hinman claims Ethereum was sufficiently decentralized, but didn't define it. And then Jesse Hines responds, yeah. So this is getting at this new test by Hinman. This test has to do with the treatment of the asset itself. I can sell an asset in an investment contract and that asset not be a security. So the threshold should be the circumstances surrounding each sale. So more speculation about this. I know the I know the XRP community is still waiting for the judge to deliver that final verdict. And, we're all just kind of looking at our portfolios, just hoping that we see the XRP price move, hopefully within the next few weeks. Michael Branch here also bringing us this article highlighting John Deaton's opinion too. He said he can't wait for the SEC emails to be released. As reported by the Crypto Basic, an internal SEC email cited as Exhibit 220 conceded that XRP does not meet all the elements of the Howey test. We talked about that in a video a few days ago. The disclosure has further triggered an interest of the public as several XRP enthusiasts eagerly await the public release of summary judgment materials, especially the Hinman documents. In a follow-up tweet, Attorney John Deaton said he can't wait for these emails to be released. He says, I predict even non-XRP holders, including Ripple critics, will have to objectively say that what the SEC did is flat out wrong. Deaton added that inquiries about what prompted the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit would go into high gear once the emails are released. And then here's a quote just to the same here, growing interests in the Hinman documents. So meanwhile, XRP community members are more focused on Hinman documents than other exhibits related to the summary materials. For context, Hinman's documents relate to the controversial 2018 speech on cryptocurrencies by former SEC Corporate Finance Division Director William Hinman. So it's almost been 5 years, guys, and we were also discussing that statute of limitations. Maybe they were waiting, for 5 years to pass before Hinman could be held liable for what he said 5 years ago. We just really don't know at this point. It is all speculation, but I would like to thank Michael Branch and Jesse Hines for their contributions. Meanwhile, this is the information we're getting from top officials here. For example, at the Treasury, Janet Yellen says it's now highly likely the U.S. will be out of cash by early June. So she's been saying this for a while, and, the warning just kind of it's almost like this beacon that just keeps flashing, warning, warning, warning. But nobody really is doing much about it. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says it is now highly likely that her department will run out of sufficient cash in early June, and repeated her warning that the moment could come as soon as June the 1st. Here's a quote, guys. I am writing to note that we estimate that it is highly likely that Treasury will no longer be able to satisfy all of the government's obligations if Congress has not acted to raise or suspend the debt limit by early June, and potentially as early as June the 1st. Yellen said Monday in a letter to lawmakers. A week ago, Yellen had said that it was likely the Treasury would exhaust its special accounting measures to stay within the debt limit by early June. The newest letter comes as President Joe Biden and Speaker Kevin McCarthy struggle to hammer out a budget deal. Republicans have vowed not to raise the country's statutory borrowing limit unless Biden agrees to budget cuts, which, Biden did not, he mentioned it the other day, he did not want to, for example, give any leniency to crypto traders. Negotiators met for more than 2 hours on Sunday evening and held another session Monday morning, with Biden and McCarthy set to meet later on Monday. So, in terms of the financial situation in the United States, interest rates going up even further, I think. What are they at now? 7%? I think it was this tweet that I saw earlier on. I just figured I'd look it up again just to give you guys some context. Mortgage rates back to 7%, meaning that the cost to buy a house in America is now approaching $2,700 a month when including mortgage, tax, insurance, and maintenance. Meanwhile, the cost to rent is $1,850 a month, the biggest gap we've seen so far. Something has to break. So just giving you guys some reference here of where the cost is to rent versus the cost to buy. And guys, this is just getting more and more. Almost $1,000 more to buy a house versus renting. And it didn't seem like that long ago where they were saying, it's cheaper to buy a house. Yeah, when money was cheap, it was cheaper to buy a house. The easiest thing to break is mortgage rates going back down. The next easiest thing to break is home prices coming down. Likely some combination of the two will be required to save the U.S. housing market from another massive collapse in buyer demand. Mortgage applications to buy a house in mid-May were already at the lowest level in 20 years. Now they will likely decline further due to higher mortgage rates. I mean, how low can homebuyer demand in the U.S. housing market go before something in the economy breaks? And he's posted this other chart here, collapse in homebuyer demand. You guys can see that. We saw a huge surge back in 2020. And since then, we've seen it come right back down to levels not seen since 2014, and even actually lower than that. So a bit of a train wreck of an economy, something that, our generation has not seen, something that we definitely need to be paying attention to moving forward. So, I mean, of course, that is now spurring on news that FedNow is supposed to actually move up a month from July to June 1st. Is this happening? What's going on here? Chad Steengraber here posting this. They moved FedNow up from July to June 1st because they are going to default. So he just retweeted out Kevin McCarthy's tweet. The Democrats in Washington have been addicted to spending for the last 2 years. It's time to end their addiction. So this is not actually purporting anything here, but Chad Steengraber seems to think that they are moving it up. He also posts this, they're in on it, retweeting out Unusual Whales tweet here. The U.S. could default on its debt on June the 8th and June the 9th per Goldman Sachs. So just down here, Alec Phillips, the chief political economist of Goldman Sachs, said, our guess right now is that the real deadline is probably more like June 8th, June 9th. That's when they're at sort of greatest risk. And so the link is down here, guys. I will link this in the description of the article supporting that thought. Chad, though, also retweeted this out, okay? And I'm going to get to this tweet from ISO 20022 in a second. Eleanor Turret, though, also addressing this comment, some speculation on Twitter over whether the Federal Reserve will launch its FedNow service a month early on June the 1st. Look at the website. It shows this calendar entry, which could be read one of two ways, that Thean is giving insight on June 1st, or the service launches on June the 1st. So she posts this. Connie Thienan, okay, so on June 1st, Connie Thienan, head of industry relations for the Federal Reserve Financial Services, will provide insight into the countdown to the FedNow service launch on Thursday, June 1st at 11:45 a.m. Pacific Standard Time during transfer 2023. So, what does that mean? Connie Thienan, of course, from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Senior Vice President, Head of Industry Relations for Federal Reserve Financial Services. And what her job is specifically, maybe this will give us some more insight. She leads the Federal Reserve Financial Services efforts to engage payment stakeholders in advancing strategies for improving the U.S. payment system. Thienan oversees strategy and execution of industry engagement, including management relationships with key influencers, facilitating industry and Federal Reserve work groups and initiatives, and nurturing support and participation of the 11,000-member Fed Payments Improvement community. And so she is supposed to present at a meeting, and I see what Eleanor Turret is saying here. It can be read one of two ways: insight into the countdown to the FedNow service launch, whether that service launch is on Thursday, June the 1st, or whether she's saying now the countdown has been moved up to June the 1st. I have a feeling, though, that the date is actually June the 1st. Otherwise, why would they give this specific time, 11:45, unless it was a meeting? Probably not the FedNow launch at 11:45 on a Thursday. That's just my opinion. So more here from ISO 20022. Connie Thienan, the head for Federal Reserve Financial Services, will provide insight to the launch. So again, just highlighting this same tweet here. Interesting timing, says Anders on Twitter. Simo Glue says, do you have a link for this? And so we just did see the link. It's from Fed Payments. So it's from their official website. Thank you, he says. Tony Denaro down here saying FedNow is like Venmo, not a CBDC. It will go through as planned. Downside is it will condition people for Fed CBDC down the road in a few years. So we know they use Valente Technologies, which is Ripple enabled. The Fed, though, has gone on the record and said, in this iteration of FedNow, we are not going to be using XRP. However, there was some more interesting information that I thought I would show to you guys. ISO 20022 also posting this, okay? FedNow allows third-party processors to connect directly to the Federal Reserve, plus case agnostic, plus Ripple partners as third-party technology providers for FedNow. So guys, these were documents that were released a while ago. One single solution for all instant payment needs due to flexible neutral platforms that supports a variety of different use cases, and the ability to connect directly to the Federal Reserve or work with third-party processors, allowing for flexibility and implementation. This was one of their highlighted benefits, okay? Something that they wanted to kind of let the public know that they could do. Now, if you take a look over here, you can see some of these companies are Ripple enabled, like FIS, BNY Mellon is a Ripple partner. Temenos is a big one. We've got Valente, obviously that has been the biggest one. Finastra, Fiserv, and ACI Worldwide down here, just to name a few. Also, value across a variety of use cases, person to person, bill payments, customer to business, customer to government, account to account. So all these use cases, this is what FedNow is striving to accomplish, very much in line to what Ripple has been doing up until this point before they started moving into new verticals. I also wanted to address this, another tweet from ISO 20022. Let's do it. Recommendation of Fed partnering with Ripple. Okay, now this was an excerpt, and this guy was getting flack down here for not posting the source. Like Micah XRP saying fake news, Ashley Prosper asking source please, I want to get hyped about it, but I can't until I know who wrote it. So wondering where this came from, essentially, let me read it for you guys, and then I'm going to show you the source. Fed partners with Ripple to replace the SWIFT and ACH infrastructure with RippleNet and encourage all U.S. banks to adopt RippleNet for the following reasons that align with the Fed's goals, okay? Now, I want to let you guys know, just to give you guys some context, this was released in November of 2018. The XRP ledger has operated flawlessly with over 42 million ledgers closed without incident, and utilizing XRP in conjunction with Ripple's enterprise software solutions is the only way the Fed can achieve its goals. Atomic transactions ensure 100% reliability as opposed to SWIFT's failure rate of around 5%. And then down here it says of RippleNet through participation in the Faster Payments Task Force. Now, this was before FedNow was maybe not conceived, but at least announced publicly. So we have to remember that. Guys, for context, here is the source directly from the federalreserve.gov website. And it was a letter to Ann Misbeck, okay? Ann Misbeck, the Secretary, Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. And it was written by a guy named Brandon Sheehan. I have no idea who it is. I tried to do some research on him, but there are way too many on Google to find. If anybody does have more information about this, please do let me know. Tag me on Twitter. You can post it down in the comment section here. But he was basically outlining RippleNet as far back as November of 2018. Okay, so again, this is an old document. However, it does kind of speak to where I think the higher up decided that things needed to go even way back as early as 2018. Guys, there was also this connection too, okay? Jess Chang connected to Ripple and FedNow. Now, Jess Chang works for a private law firm today, but take a look at some of her past experience. She was formerly senior counsel at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, where she specialized in a broad spectrum of payment system issues, including policy analysis of digital assets, stablecoins, and central bank digital currencies, and oversight of the Federal Reserve's payment system, including the FedNow service. So this is interesting because this would have been aligning probably in and around this time here between 2018 and present day. Prior to that, she was counsel of the International Monetary Fund, where she advised on strategic direction of the fund's fintech work agenda and provided technical assistance to advance law reform in central bank legislation. Previously, she was deputy general counsel at Ripple, a San Francisco-based fintech company specializing in distributed ledger technology-based cross-border payment solutions. Now, I believe she was with Ripple kind of closer to the beginning. So that would have been 2013, 2012, 2013, 2014, if I'm not mistaken. However, she does have connections to the Fed, to Ripple. And not only that, specifically during this period that the FedNow service was being introduced. And there was also this too, guys, from Anders. Let's not forget, FedNow fixes the last mile problem of cross-border transfers sent into the United States. FedNow is not a threat to Ripple or crypto. That's nonsense. The last mile problem has been pointed out by David Schwartz, and David Schwartz has mentioned this numerous times. So we do know there is a connection to Ripple, FedNow, numerous connections actually, even if FedNow is not using XRP specifically. So back to the speculation though, are we going to see this earlier? As Eleanor Turret though here is pointing out, after clicking on the meeting link and scrolling down to the agenda for June 1st, it talks about the product still being launched in July. So unfortunately, guys, I don't think we are going to see this being launched in a week, but July, guys, is not that far away. And who knows what emergency measures the US might have to take in order to tame this wild economy. The price of XRP is at 46 cents now, but that'll change very, very soon. That's just my opinion, but I want to hear what you guys think. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like the content I'm providing. I always love hearing your comments. See you in the next one, guys.